Oh, good afternoon. It's very pleasantly warm, and I've just had lunch, and I just thought I would sit in a chair, catch some rays, and relax a bit before I find the next thing that I should be doing. And I thought, this is a good time for a lesson in the language of France. French. It's a wonderful language. I have seen and watched quite a few French language videos on YouTube, and let's say that some of them do not match my experience. I think that's about the polite way of putting it. Yeah. The other thing that I discovered very quickly is schoolboy French that I learnt in the 1970s won't get you very far in France. I don't know, some of you will have done French at school and some of you won't have done. And there were things that I was taught at school that I explained to people, and they just sort of smile indulgently and tell me how they say things. And of course, one of the big problems with learning any language is there is the standard language, and then there's the sort of colloquial, the language as she's spoken. So I sort of thought, I don't know, how would I try to teach, for the sake of argument, an American who is getting on the big white bird and flying across the Atlantic and coming to France? What sort of things are important? Well, the first thing is smile a lot. You'd be surprised how many mistakes you can make and get away with if you smile a lot. But yeah, let's just think, there we are, on the big white bird coming into Charles de Gaulle Airport at Paris. And the aeroplane lands. The verb for landing, l'avion atterrisse. You don't need to know that. The pilot does. You don't. Actually, the pilot doesn't, because the international language of air traffic control is English. Yeah. Hey, there's a thing. But all of these American tourists, they all come down the gangplank, and we know they're Americans because they've all got 3 cameras hanging around their necks. Yeah. And they come into the arrivals hall, and so far it's easy because there's those sort of shepherd sort of characters that wave and gesticulate and generally drive the herd of tourists into the arrival lounge. And you're going to meet your first proper Frenchman, probably at passport control, and you can stand there looking, I was going to say looking dumb, but that's not, well, you know what airports are like. You stand there, and the first thing you should say to this gentleman is going to be bonjour. There is a risk to this. If you practice saying bonjour until you sound like Charles Aznavour or Maurice Chevalier, the passport officer might think that you speak perfect French, at which point he is going to ask you a series of questions, and you won't have a clue what he said because he's now speaking full speed, full blast, rapid colloquial French, and you're now in trouble. But what he is likely to say is votre, your passport. That's easy, isn't it? Yeah. Your passport, s'il vous plaît. If you please. That's what he is likely to say. And guess what? You're going to hand him your shiny new passport, and he's going to look at it, and he's going to hold it up and look to see if the photograph in it is anything like the person standing in front of him. Yeah, so that's easy enough. Votre, your, the plural. He might, there's an outside chance, he might just say vos passport, s'il vous plaît, because there's probably two of you. But it's going to start with a V. He's going to use the word passport. If you don't understand an immigration control officer who asks you for your passport, you best turn round and go home. S'il vous plaît, if you please. And yeah, you're now, hopefully, assuming all your paperwork is as it should be and the picture on the passport looks something like you and not your cousin from Arkansas, you're now sort of going to hope for some guidance towards wherever it is you're going. And you might feel a need to ask a question. Parlez-vous? Do you speak? Now, when you start studying French, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about irregular verbs and regular verbs, and you're going to think, oh goodness, what's this all about? And the conjugation of verbs, and they're going to talk about past simple, and they're going to talk about parfait and plus que parfait, and oh, don't worry about that. Parler. With an R on the end, that's the base verb, but with a Z on the end, that's posing the question politely, because it is polite to use vous, which is the plural. If you know the person, if you're great mates with the person, you might use the singular. You might use tu, but you don't. This is a complete stranger in a strange country, and you're trying to impress them. So you're going, parlez-vous? Anglais. Ah, yes. The standard response, it doesn't matter who I ask, parlez-vous anglais? Parlez-vous anglais, because it starts with an A, so you run the S over, parlez-vous anglais. The standard answer is oui and peu. But the other one, of course, they're going to look you in the eye and say, parlez-vous français? And I've drawn a little funny squiggly thing under the C. You don't see that too often. Don't worry about it. It's called a cedilla. It means that the C is soft, français, rather than franquais. Yeah, so you're going to ask, parlez-vous français, parlez-vous anglais? And hopefully, whoever you're speaking to is going to say, yes, of course I do. And for most tourists, you will be surrounded by French people who speak better English than you do. For most tourists. It's only when you get away from hotel reception desks that you start finding people who look you in the eye and say, non. But there we are. Parlez-vous français, parlez-vous anglais? Ah, now, you've been sat next to Mildred for 8 hours in this big Boeing aeroplane, and you've been terrified throughout the flight, and you arrive in France. What after showing your passport and getting your stamp in it, what is the next thing that you want? Well, here's the thing. Americans want the bathroom. Never did understand that. Why do they want a bath? Bathrooms have baths in them. You do not want the bathroom, you want the toilet. So, où est, where is les toilettes, ou les taxis, ou... yeah. Where is... Now, I was taught at school that the toilets are le double WC. And when I used that phrase with a very good friend of mine, he just burst into laughter and asked me where I'd learnt that. And I said, I learnt that at school. And I got an exam in French. And he said, we just say the WC. And his mum said that she just says le coin, or the corner, le petit coin. Not a big problem with toilets. If you go a bit cross-eyed and look like you're in pain, someone will work out what it is you want. And very useful to know two words, homme and femme. H-O-M-M-E-S is men, and femme, F-E-M-M-E-S, is women. So, les toilettes. Où est les toilettes? Ooh's just les toilettes, s'il vous plaît. Yeah, and off you go. You'll find that certainly at airports they are exactly the same as they are all around the world, with all of the usual things. Sometimes on some motorway service stations you might need some coins to put in a slot, but generally speaking here that's not normally the case. Right, what was the last? Yes. Now, you've been stuck next to Sybil on the aeroplane, and all she's jabbered about all the way across is, do you think we're going to meet President Macron? Do you think we're going to see les Champs-Élysées? Will we? And after 8 hours, it gets a bit much, and you needed to go to the toilet, and a very kind person showed you where the toilets were, and you're grateful. So you say merci. If you really fancy, you might say merci beaucoup, or merci pour votre assistance, but you're not. You're a tourist. You look like a tourist. The 3 cameras are a dead giveaway. Merci is, yeah, that'll do it. Right, okay, I now want a cup of tea. Je veux une tasse de thé, s'il vous plaît. We'll talk about how you ask for things another time.